I've been in some bad situations before, dodging bounty hunters, sweet-talking loan sharks, and once, very briefly, being trapped inside a malfunctioning escape pod with an angry rodent. But this is a new low. I, Phil Pole, interstellar tradesman, raid, smuggler. I'm currently locked in a high-security alien prison for a crime I barely committed. And to top it all off, my cellmate is very distracting. She's not human, that much is obvious. Celera has shimmering lavender skin, bright bioluminescent markings across her collarbone, and golden waves of hair that look like they belong on some old Earth Hollywood starlet. Her lips are blood red, and her eyes glow, faintly in the dim light. She watches me like a scientist examining a newly discovered species. So, she purrs, tilting her head, "You're a human." I sit down on the metal bunk opposite hers, already exhausted. The cold from the metal seeps through my jumpsuit, making me shiver slightly. Yeah, last time I checked. Her lips curl into a grin. Fascinating. I've always wondered, do human males really function without pheromone bonds? Or do you just blunder through attraction like clueless, little space deer? I blink. What? Celera leans forward, studying me. Her scent, a mix of something floral and electric, fills the small space between us. Your scent. It's so muted, I can't tell anything. Are you nervous, intrigued? Already falling hopelessly in love with me? I rub my temples. Lady, I just got thrown into a space prison. Forgive me if I'm not in the mood for. She suddenly reaches out and grabs my arm, her fingers cool and smooth against my skin. Her eyes widen in delight. "Oh, your skin is so warm." I yank my arm back. "You don't just grab people." Celera laughs, completely unbothered. "I like you, Jack. You're so flustered." I groan, flopping back on my bunk, staring at the dull metal ceiling. This is going to be a long sentence. She stretches, feline-like, her body moving with lazy elegance. Could be worse, she muses. I could have been locked in with Xylerian. They shed scales everywhere. How comforting, I mutter. Celera only grins. Later, Celera finally stops teasing, long enough to explain her escape plan. Turns out she was already working on one before I got tossed in. "You're lucky you got me as a stalemate," she brags, lounging like a queen on her bed. "I was already halfway to freedom before they caught me last time." "Wait, last time?" She grins. The glow of her markings pulsing slightly with amusement. They keep underestimating me. She pulls up a loose panel in the wall, revealing a cramped ventilation shaft, lined with alien machinery. I've been working on widening this for weeks. We squeeze through here, drop into the maintenance tunnels, then steal a guard's keycard. Easy. Yeah, sure, because nothing ever goes wrong with escape plans. Celera winks, flipping a golden curl over her shoulder. I like a man with optimism. We wait for the lights out cycle, the prison settling into eerie quiet, then slip into the vent. The metal is cold against my palms as I pull myself forward, the space barely large enough for me. Celera, ahead of me, moves with a surprising grace, her lithe form twisting easily through the tight space. Her scent lingers, a heady mix of alien spice and something faintly sweet. You know, she calls softly over her shoulder, for someone who claims to be inexperienced. "Rogue, you're not very good at moving quietly." "Excuse me," I grunt, wincing as my elbow scrapes against a sharp edge. "Not all of us are built like contortionist supermodels." She giggles. "I am rather impressive, aren't I?" We reach the end of the shaft, where Celera pries open a loose panel, revealing the maintenance corridor just beyond. The dim overhead lights flicker, casting the space in eerie shadows. She peeks out, her bioluminescent markings dimming slightly as she listens. "All clear," she whispers, slipping out first. I follow, rolling my shoulders with relief at the open space. Celera doesn't waste time. She moves toward the nearest security panel and pulls a slim tool from her sleeve, its sharp tip glowing faintly as she begins to override the locks. "How do you even know how to do this?" I ask, watching her fingers dance over the controls. She flashes me a smirk. "Oh, Jack, there's so much you don't know about me." Before I can press her, alarms blare. Red, warming lights pulse, bathing the hallway in a crimson glow. My stomach drops. "Tell me that was part of the plan." Cellular curses, spinning toward me. "They must have changed the security cycle early. We need to move now." We bolt down the corridor, footsteps pounding against the metal floor. The distant hum of security drones grows louder, closing in fast. Celera suddenly pulls me into a side alcove, pressing me against the wall. Her body is flush against mine, warm and electric, her breath fanning over my cheek. "Hold still," she whispers. I barely have time to process before she tilts her head, lips brushing against mine in a feather-light tease. My pulse hammers. Every nerve in my body is suddenly hyper-aware of her, of the soft pressure of her curves against me, the faint, intoxicating scent of her skin. "What?" I start, but she silences me with a deep, deliberate kiss. It's not just for show. There's something real in the way her mouth moves against mine, something more than just a distraction tactic. Her fingers skim up my arm, leaving trails of heat in their wake. I respond instinctively, pulling her closer, losing myself in the sensation of her, in the way she melts into me with a pleased hum. The alarms fade to the background. The world shrinks to just the two of us. Then, just as suddenly as she started, Celera pulls back, her golden eyes flashing with mischief. "You taste interesting," she muses, licking her lips as if savoring the moment. I blink, struggling to find words. Was that part of the plan?" She grins. "Not exactly, but I've been wanting to do that." I exhale a shaky breath, my mind still spinning. "You are dangerous." Flattering. She grabs my hand. "Now, come on, darling. Time to run." We take off again, dodging around corners as the warden's voice booms through the speakers, demanding all prisoners return to their cells. We're nearly to the final checkpoint when a massive silhouette steps into our path. The warden, a towering brute of an alien with too many eyes and even more muscle. Celera stops short. "Ah, well, this is inconvenient." "Inconvenient," I hiss. "He's blocking the only way out." She sighs dramatically. "Looks like we'll have to retreat." I glance back the way we came. The security drones are closing in. "Where exactly to?" She grins. "Guess?" Before I can argue, she yanks me toward a side corridor, the one leading back to our cell. The escape attempt is over. For now. Back in our cell, the moment the door slams shut behind us, I collapse onto the bunk, dragging a hand through my hair. That was a disaster. Jack slumped onto the cold metal bunk, frustration knotting in his chest. They had been so close, just a few more seconds, and they might have made it. Celera hums, stretching like a satisfied cat, before dropping onto the bed beside me. It was fun. I turned my head to glare at her. "We almost got caught." She shrugs, unconcerned. "We'll try. Again. I have a new plan." I groan. "Of course you do." A beat of silence passes. Then she shifts closer, her fingers trailing absently down my arm. A shiver races through me. "You know it," she murmurs. "I really did want to kiss you." I exhale slowly, the memory of her lips still fresh. "Yeah." She nods, glowing eyes. Locked onto mine. "Yeah, I don't think. I just move." This time, it's me who kisses her deeper, slower. She responds instantly, fingers tangling in my hair, pulling me closer. The world outside fades again, leaving only heat, only the soft sigh she makes as I trail kisses down the curve of her throat. The night stretches on, filled with whispered words and slow, deliberate touches. It's not hurried, not frantic like our escape. It's something else, something real. And when she finally rests her head against my chest, breathing slow and steady, I realize something terrifying. I don't want to escape alone. I want her with me, and that might be the most dangerous part of all. The thought unsettled him. He had always worked alone, relied on himself. But now, the idea of slipping through the stars without Celera at his side felt wrong, dangerous in a different way. The morning came and we talked about yesterday's events. Solara just smiles, that infuriating, knowing smile that makes it clear she's always 5 steps ahead. It was a necessary setback, Jack. The plan is still in motion, and now we know what we're dealing with. I let out a frustrated sigh. Yeah, well, it's a hell of a plan, she grins. You'll see. I don't know whether I'm supposed to trust her or be worried. It's like playing a game of 3-dimensional chess with someone who already knows all the moves, and I'm just here for the ride. Part of me wants to tell her to slow down, to stop treating everything like a game, but I can't seem to shake the fact that her chaos works. Somehow, it keeps working. Later that night, when the lights are dim and the air in the cell feels thick with the weight of the prison's constant hum, Celera leans over and pulls up the same loose panel in the wall she'd been working on earlier. This time, she's less playful and more serious. We do it my way this time, she says, her tone unexpectedly stern. No distractions. I raise an eyebrow. What? No flirting this time? She glances at me with a mixture of amusement and something I don't quite understand. Focus, Jack. We have one shot. I don't argue. This is the real deal now. She leads me through the vent once more, but this time there's a sense of urgency in the way she moves. Her hands are steady, her body more taut with concentration. I follow her through the tight space, heart pounding as the sounds of the prison's night cycle hums beneath us. This is where the patrols change routes, she says softly, pushing through a narrow gap. We're going to have to time this perfectly. One wrong move, and we're back in the cell, or worse. We reach the maintenance tunnels. The air smells of old machinery and grease, and the low buzz of the equipment fills the silence between us. Celera motions for me to follow closely as she darts from shadow to shadow, her form blending effortlessly with the darkness. I can't help but marvel at how natural she is in this environment, how she belongs here like a shadow in the night. I thought you were just digging holes in the wall, I mutter as we pause behind a large, rusted panel. Celera glances over at me, a half smirk on her lips. The shaft was just the start. I've been planning the escape for months. I know this place better than I know my own ship. I'm starting to believe her. We move swiftly through the tunnels, and as we approach a maintenance door that leads to the outside, Celera motions for me to stop. I crouch low, listening carefully for any signs of the guards. Okay, she whispers. This is the critical part. There's a guard just beyond this door. I'll handle it. You just make sure no one else gets in our way. Handle it. I ask, trying not to sound too worried. How exactly? She looks at me with a mischievous glint in her eyes. You just stay close. I'm going to do what I do best. Before I can ask her what that means, she's already moving toward the door. She presses her back against the cool metal, peering around the corner with a practiced eye. I follow her lead, but I have a sinking feeling that we're in for another one of her chaotic solutions. And then, just like before, Celera does something that completely defies my expectations. She steps into view, flipping her hair back in a calculated motion, and suddenly it's as though the entire tunnel changes. Her bioluminescent markings flare, glowing a soft, hypnotic rhythm that seems to pull the entire room's focus toward her. It's like she's a living light show. And I can already see the guard's attention starting to waver, his focus entirely on her. "Hey, big guy," she calls out in a voice that's as smooth as velvet, taking slow, deliberate steps toward him. "Is that really the kind of uniform you wear on your patrols? You should let me help you out of it." The guard stops dead in his tracks, and I can hear the supple whir of his sensors as he adjusts to the shift in his programming. His mechanical gaze tracks Celera, who's now standing just within arm's reach, her eyes locked on his with an intensity that almost makes me uncomfortable. "Your security settings seem a little off, don't you think?" Celera continues, her voice laced with charm and something more dangerous, something deeper. I blink. Is she distracting him?